Welcome to the Richard Sherman Podcast. Hit that sub button if you're new. We're here to give you great NFL content, game recaps, player interviews, and stories from around the league. Please tune in. Welcome back to the Richard Sherman Podcast, brought to you by our friends and partners over at Breitling. They got us blinged up. Y'all know the vibes. For sure. They got my boy Raheem blinged up in Atlanta. They had my guy Saleh blinged up in New York until Woody Johnson made a knee-jerk decision, a knee-jerk reaction to a loss in London. And his team got to play tonight, and that's what we're here to talk about. The Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets. It was a good game, very close game, came down to the wire. Thought the Jets had a number of chances to finish that game. Greg Zuerlein missed 2 field goals in the fourth quarter, which ultimately determined the outcome of the game. I think very makeable field goals for him. There was a swirling wind throughout the night, so that may have factored in. But I thought this was one of Aaron Rodgers' best games as a Jet. He did throw an interception, but he threw the 2 touchdowns. Had the zip on the ball that you're used to seeing, got sacked 3 times, threw for 294 yards, which is a lot for Aaron. I think the most that he's thrown as a Jet, the most that he's thrown in the last couple years. Breece Hall had his best game this season at 18 carries for 113 yards. Allen Lazard had some huge catches, including a Hail Mary that he caught at the end of the first half. Garrett Wilson got fed all day, 8 catches for 107 yards, could have been more. But the story of this game, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills did a really good job controlling this game. Didn't make a lot of mistakes. 19 to 25, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interception, ran the ball, not a ton of running, not a ton of yards, just 9 carries for 18 yards. But he did have the TD and just was in total command this entire game, spreading the ball around to different receivers. Dalton Kincaid had 6 catches. Mac Hollins had an 8-yard touchdown. I saw a lot of guys get involved. Khalil Shakir had a few grabs. But I think, unfortunately, the referees were the story of this game. I saw a number of just unnecessary flags. So it'd be offsetting flags that neither had to happen. Like, just let the play. We called multiple defensive PIs on DJ Reed. And I know fans are like, oh, it's PI, because they're slow-moing it, and you get to see every angle, and it's like, oh, man, the DB. People don't understand. They have an implicit bias against defensive players. You have an implicit bias. I'm sorry. You always think they're guilty. So when you're looking from a lens of like, he probably did something. Let me make sure he did something. But I'm watching from the lens of, hey, I know how hard it is to play the position. You guys let these receivers get away with way more than you would ever let us get away with, and then get upset that we defend ourselves. So the first PI has, I think it was Mac Hollins, stiff-arming DJ Reed, and people are like, oh, receivers get to push off. That's not offensive PI. Yes, it's offensive PI. It's offensive PI. And then you tell the ref, and they're like, well, we'll call it, but don't grab his hand. It's like, he's got a hand in my chest, literally had DJ Reed by the jersey, and literally, as the ball is about to come, it's going to finish the push, catch the ball, and either score a touchdown or have a very big gain on the play. What do you expect a DB to do? You're allowing them to push off and allowing them to stiff arm a corner away, grab his jersey, and then you're like, hey, but don't grab his hand. Well, then call something why he's got his hand in my chest, because he's not allowing me to do my job, which is to defend him. So if I'm trying to run, if I grab the receiver by the chest with my hand in his chest down the field that far, they call illegal contact or holding or whatever the call may be. But the call doesn't go both ways. So I don't like to see the PI called when a receiver puts his hand in the chest. I tell my corners, and I tell them every single time, if he puts that hand in your chest, don't give it back. Don't give it back. Make him call it, because that it's an unfair advantage, and there's no rule protecting us. You want points, so you're going to let them do whatever they want to get open, but you're not going to let us defend it. Like, hey, I got to knock his hand down pull through, and then you're like, oh, look at that. It's PI because he pulled through. No, it's hard to play defense in this league. The refs did a terrible job tonight. For a while, it looked like they were calling it one way, and then they started to call makeup calls. They called a nonsense roughing the passer on the Buffalo Bills. They called a nonsense PI late in the game on the Buffalo Bills on the final drive for the New York Jets. And I just don't, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of how that game was called. I think these refs can be better than that. I thought anytime you see a ref featured that much where you know his name and his face and we're looking at him every freaking, 5-10 minutes, that's too much. That's too much. Like, you can call a penalty on every play if you wanted to. That's not what people want to see. That's not what people want to see on primetime on a Monday night. So, unfortunately, that was the story of this game. But another story of this game was the Buffalo Bills defense. They played really well. Especially the safety play, Taylor Rapp was all over the place. He and Damar Hamlin had a couple crucial plays in the end zone where they broke up touchdown passes. Taylor Rapp also broke up a first down. Looked like a first down catch on 2nd and 16 on the last drive of the game. There were some really cool plays throughout the night from that defense, and it's a really young secondary that just continues to get better, continues to develop, and that's a hats off to the Buffalo Bills coaching staff and their scouting department, because they just next man up mentality. Guys keep stepping up, and even the linebackers, you've been banged up at linebacker, and they just keep having guys step up. AJ Epinesa had 2 sacks, was all over the place. They put a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers. Even when they didn't get the sacks, they hit him, they knocked him down. You could see him limping throughout the game. Obviously, that had an effect on him. Had a number of throws that were high, rushed, where you could feel the pressure. But this is going to be a tough defense. And even though they're banged up, they lost a lot of veteran presence from last season. They look like they just continue to put together great defenses and great offenses and win football games. They're 4-2 at the top of the AFC East, and it's looking like they're going to win that division. On the other side, the New York Jets have a lot of talent, good quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, but it's just turmoil. And we talked about this earlier, that Woody Johnson injected turmoil into this team. Sure, they could have won this game. Most of the time when there's a coaching change, the team with the coaching change wins the game after that. I don't know why. I think it's I forget what the exact number is, but it's a winning record. But you don't go to the playoffs with those teams. I think only one team in recent memory has gone to the playoffs, and that was when John Gruden got fired from the Raiders and Bisciotti got hired or was the interim. They went to playoffs, but that was a good team. It wasn't a bad team. He wasn't fired because they were a bad team. He was fired for some stuff that got uncovered or whatever it was. But I just don't see this going well for the New York Jets. I want them to make the playoffs. I want them to win and do well, because I wanted to show that Saleh's system, his culture change, the decisions that he made throughout his tenure were the right decisions. He doesn't have control. He didn't have control over every decision. They didn't give him power over personnel. So when he's playing Zach Wilson and he doesn't want to, or he has to play the guys that they put in front of him. So that's a tough thing for a head coach. There are a lot of head coach GM dynamics that are different throughout the league. That's the New York Jets'. I don't agree that should be the case. I think the head coach needs to be able to say who's the starter, who's sitting in these games, especially if he's going to get fired or hired for it. You look at the Carolina Panthers, for example. Tepper makes an executive decision at the 11th hour after all these scouts and GMs have done all their research all year or for however many years on these quarterbacks, and they want to pick CJ Stroud, and then he wants to pick Bryce Young. And now they pick Bryce Young. Bryce Young isn't ready at the time, doesn't necessarily play well his rookie year. So now you're firing an entire staff because of a decision you made. And I just feel like sometimes everybody's like, oh, it's the owners, it's their team, so they can do it. They do, but it just doesn't make sense. You pick a guy who has a detrimental impact on the staff, and then you fire the staff like it's their fault when it was your decision. I guess you can't fire yourself, but take some accountability on the decision you made, be able to eat that. And again, in this situation, you would think they would have gave Robert Saleh at least a full season with Aaron. At least a full season. The defense has played pretty well, is at the top or near the top in a number of statistical categories. That's what he is. He's a defensive head coach. and he's done well. Unfortunately, this team doesn't have it right now offensively. This was their best game offensively, honestly. The special teams is what let them down, and I think the conditions had a lot to do with that. But it's just an unfortunate situation. The Jets go to Pittsburgh next week, which is going to be a really tough out because that defense is playing really well, and that offense is playing well enough, and they're starting to get a feel for what Justin Fields wants to do. He's taking his shots down the field. I think they need another weapon outside of George Pickens at receiver in order to really get that offense into another gear. But I think that's going to be a really good game. And if the Jets lose that game, I think it's going to be another hard decision somewhere that Woody Johnson's going to have to make. Like, you thought you made the right decision, and if they lose another game, then it's like it looks like a ridiculous decision because it was a ridiculous decision. And I don't know what the next decision it is that you make because you already injected the turmoil into the team. You could have just let it play out and let's see what happens, not have a knee-jerk reaction, but a knee-jerk reaction is what you did. Now we got to see how it plays out. I don't think you can make another drastic change right now at this point in the season, even if they're 2-5. But the Bills host the Titans. I think that'll be a good game, too. I think Will Levis has regressed a bit. Josh Allen looks like he's in total command. I think the Buffalo Bills pull that game off, but we'll talk about that next week.
The roller coaster of an NFL season is moving right along, and it promises to be a month full of tricks, treats, and of course, touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Running it in from the one or on an 80-yard bomb, we don't care how they score touchdowns. We just want to bet on them. DraftKings heard us, and they are delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code RICHARD. That's code RICHARD for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
With so many tools and tabs and never enough time, growing a business can feel pretty overwhelming. You end up spending more time organizing documents and data than actually connecting with prospects and customers. That's where HubSpot steps in. It's the all-in-one customer platform for growing better. With HubSpot, marketers generate better leads, sales builds tighter relationships with customers, and closes more deals. And service supports your customers at scale with tools like HubSpot's AI chatbot and knowledge base, meaning your marketers, sales reps, and service teams actually have time to do what they're hired to do. And when they grow, the sky's the limit for your business too. Grow better, faster with HubSpot's all-in-one customer platform. Visit HubSpot.com to get started today. Now let's talk about the Sunday night game. Wasn't the most exciting game in the world, at least to me. It was a defensive game. I thought the New York Giants defense played really well majority of the game. I thought the Cincinnati Bengals defense played their best game all season, held the Giants under 10 points. It's the first time this season that the first time since week 1 that the Bengals have held an opponent under 24 points. Obviously, having B.J. Hill and Sheldon Rankins makes a huge difference on those things. It's the first game back together. And, of course, they play a really good game against the run. Tyrone Tracy, coming off his best game against the Seattle Seahawks, was held to 50 yards on 17 carries. They were trying to find different ways to get him the ball, trying to find different ways to get him open into open space. But that defense just kept swarming throughout that game. I thought Jermaine Pratt had a really good game. Trey Hendrickson, always a menace, always all over the place. Made a huge impact in this game. 2 sacks on Daniel Jones. And I thought Joe Burrow played a solid game, but he was sacked 4 times. That New York Giants defensive line, one of the best in football, leading the league in sacks. They got to Joe Burrow 4 times, but he did have the 47-yard touchdown run, which was incredible. Well, I didn't know Joe. You know, they always say Joe's sneaky athletic, and that's the way of saying we don't think he's that fast, but every now and then he'll get you 10 yards. He'll sneak up on you. But for a 47-yarder in the National Football League, you got to have real athleticism and real speed, and that's what he showed on that drive. Really cool play that they needed to have. They won this game 17-7, and Jamar Chase had a solid game, 5 catches for 72 yards. T. Higgins, 7 catches for 77 yards. But they were in battles all day with the Giants DBs. I think I don't know what to say about this game other than, they did enough to win the game. There were times that the Giants could have pulled this game out. There were plays to be had. Cincinnati could have easily been 1-5, but they're 2-4. The Giants are 2-4. The Bengals go to the Browns. That's a winnable game. Deshaun Watson isn't playing particularly well. The Browns defense can cause some chaos, obviously, with Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward in the secondary they have, in the front they have. But it's going to be Deshaun Watson is going to have to wake up and really figure it out. They can't bench him. We already heard Stefanski say they're not benching him. They really can't. They owe him too much money, and it's all guaranteed. And so any rhetoric or any conversation about anything otherwise is probably false because they can't bench him. It doesn't matter what you think about how he's playing. You bench him, you're conceding that you're going to pay him a lot of money to sit on the bench for the next couple games, the next year, next 2 years, next 3 years. You can't trade him. I don't think he's his trade value is not there. So unfortunately for the Browns, they got to see it through. Hopefully Deshaun can regain form. He shows flashes throughout some of these games that he could get back, but hasn't yet. The Giants host the Eagles, and the Eagles haven't looked great, but they've won games. They beat the Browns 20-16 in a game that had a lot to do with the defenses playing well. AJ Brown had a huge impact in that game, and I'm sure he's going to have another huge impact in this game against the Giants. But the Giants' defensive line, I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line has been the same since Jason Kelce left. And I think that's where the matchup is. That's where the Giants have a chance. If they can be disruptive, if they can continue to get after the quarterback the way they have this season, they'll have a chance in that game, but they have to find some way offensively. And I thought they may have found a strategy against the Seattle Seahawks. Daniel Jones looked good. He was making passes, making the game look easy, taking what the defense gave him. They had screen plays that were developing really nicely. And I don't know why they got away from that in this game, but they're going to have to get back to that. They expect to get back in this division race for the NFC East. And the Cincinnati Bengals just got to keep on keeping on. They got a favorable schedule over the next couple games. And, this is just what we've known from them. They start off slow and find a way to get to 500, get hot late in the season, get to the playoffs, and make some noise. And we'll see if they're able to do that again this season. The Niners get some good news for a change. Ricky Pearsall back at practice 44 days after being shot in that tragic incident in San Francisco. I mean, all we've heard is positive things from OTAs to minicamp to training camp. He's been fantastic. We'll see how they can fit him in, and it's already really talented offense. A lot of mouths to feed. Talked about the big games Juwan Jennings had. Deebo Samuel's coming off his best game of the season. Brandon Ayuk had a really good game against the Arizona Cardinals. George Kittle had 2 touchdowns this last game. So hopefully there's, a few footballs to go around for him. They got some positive news on Jordan Mason. The injury isn't as severe as they thought. He's practiced. So it's positive things going on for the 49ers. Hopefully that gets them ready for their Super Bowl rematch this weekend against the Kansas City Chiefs. I will be there. I think I'm the honorary captain. It's going to be a fun game. I'm going to bring my son, hoping that the Niners can get their revenge. That'd be a fun game to watch. Again, we talked about Kevin Stefanski sticking with Deshaun Watson. He hasn't thrown for 250 yards since week 3 of last season. Flacco threw 250 yards multiple times last season, and the offense looked really good. David Njoku looked incredible with Joe Flacco, and you just saw the difference that he can make in this offense. I thought they would, with how he played, they'd bring him back, but he got scooped up by the Indianapolis Colts. But it's just not a lot of great stats going on for Deshaun Watson, and he has to figure it out. They lead the league in sacks. despite he's gotten sacked 31 times, but offensive line is giving him time to throw, but he's just still taking sacks, holding the ball longer than he should, been a bit inaccurate. So there's not a lot they can do. He has a no trade clause in his contract. He has a $73 million cap hit for the next couple years. I don't know what you do in this situation. It's just unfortunate for Browns fans and for what they expected from Deshaun Watson. And it's sad for Deshaun Watson because he had been a really good player in this league, really good quarterback. That's why they paid him the money they paid him. Hopefully, he can get past these things and really find his mojo back, because confidence is a tough thing to get back once you lose it. And it just looks like he's lost it a bit. Hopefully going forward, he'll find it and he'll give this team a chance to win ball games. I don't think they'll switch their quarterbacks because they just can't at this point.
All right, football fans, let's be real. How much is your next day worth? You know what it's like after a big game, whether you're tailgating, celebrating a win, or even drowning out a loss. Those nights can hit hard the next morning. But I've got the perfect solution for you. No days wasted with their game-changing product, DHM Detox. DHM Detox is an absolute must-have. It's an all-natural, plant-based supplement designed to help you recover from a night out, so you wake up fresh, not sluggish. DHM Detox is packed with powerful ingredients like DHM, L-thystine, milk thistle, and prickly pear to help your body break down toxins and combat that next day fog. No more brain fog, no more nausea, no more Sunday scaries. Having a drink or two, take a packet and knock it down with a big glass of water. And if you're heading out for a big night on the town, double up with 2 packets to make sure you're feeling your best the next day. People think dehydration is the main culprit behind feeling like trash the next morning, but that's just 20% of the problem. The other 80%, toxins building up in the body. DHM Detox handles it like a pro. No Days Wasted is a local Pacific Northwest company. Support local and try No Days Wasted. Don't waste time feeling sluggish after a night out. Maximize life's moments with DHM Detox. It's a completely risk-free purchase. So if you don't love it, they'll refund you on your first 15-pack. Head over to nodayswasted.com/Richard and use code Richard to get 20% off your order. That's nodayswasted.com/Richard for 20% off and free shipping. Get ready to feel your best.
And Davante Adams talks have gone dormant. Yeah, of course they have. Of course they have. It was unnecessary for them to say, oh, we need a second-round pick for him, or we're not giving him up. Look, this is the National Football League. They understand what's going on. They see the writing on the wall. They see the public sentiment. They see that he's unhappy there. They're not giving you a second-round pick for a player that clearly wants to leave your franchise. That's always been the case. They see it's like a guy being banged up. It's like, hey, the price goes down. But when a guy doesn't want to be there, if they're paying a second-round pick, then that's them coming out of nowhere and saying, hey, this guy can be a difference maker on our team. I know he's happy over there, but man, could we use him? And we're trying to pry him away from you. He's not playing right now for anybody. You're paying him not to play. And I know that he's rehabbing an injury, but I'm sure if he got traded tomorrow, he'd be playing and suiting up for that game. So they're going to have to lower their price. They're going to have to swallow their pride, because right now you're paying a lot of money not to play football games, and that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the Raiders. It doesn't help Davante. It's not good. So hopefully the Raiders can figure it out, because they're going to have to make a decision on him, either force him to play, which isn't, I'm sure he's a pro. Davante's a pro. He'll show up, do his job, go home. But he doesn't want to be there. That's not the culture they're trying to set. And so you need to make a move. Make the move. Make the move. You know what I mean? Cut your losses. Hey, say, we'll take a third and a fourth. Walk away. It's that easy. I'm sure the New York Jets are one of the teams interested in him. I hear the New Orleans Saints are a team that is really, really interested in him and could use him. But he's a good receiver, and I think him being wasted like away at home isn't good for anybody. So I think he'll make it out of Vegas at some point or another before the trade deadline. But it's gonna take them swallowing their pride to do it, or they're gonna keep paying him not to show up, not to play football games, which doesn't make sense. Now it's time for our Thursday night football preview. We have the New Orleans Saints versus the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos 3-3, coming off a very tough loss to the LA Chargers. Denver's 3-1 in the last 4 games. New Orleans is 0-4 in the last 4 games. Bo Nix in the last 4 games, 698 yards, 5 touchdowns, only 1 interception, 120 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. It just seems like Sean Payton and Bo Nix are starting to get a good rhythm, a good understanding of what one another needs, what Sean's looking for from Bo, what Bo likes on the football field, the plays that he likes called, the things that he does well, the way he's seeing the field. I think they're starting to find chemistry and rhythm. And of course, he's a rookie quarterback, so just only getting better each and every game. That Denver Broncos defense with Patrick Surtain as the best corner in the National Football League is going to be a formidable matchup, especially for this New Orleans Saints team that's just so banged up. Derek Carr is still out of the lineup. Spencer Rattler played a solid game last week, but it's going to be 2 rookie quarterbacks going at it in the Superdome. Sean Payton's first game back at the Superdome since he's been with the Denver Broncos. And I'm hearing a lot of things from Saints fans that they're not happy about the way things went when Sean Payton left. I'm not sure he's going to get the welcome that he thinks he'll get. But it all is Drew Brees Day, and they're retiring Drew Brees' number, which is an awesome sight. He was an incredible player for that franchise for a really long time, helped them win their only Super Bowl, and really just had phenomenal years. Threw for 5,000 yards multiple times, and just played the game the right way at a high level. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I'm thankful that we'll be there. Hopefully I'll get some good food, good eating in New Orleans. That was this week's TNF Preview presented by Prime Video. And be sure to watch this Thursday, the Broncos take on the Saints. Check us out. 7 p.m. Eastern is when we start the best party and the best pregame show in football. Tune in. All right. Now for this week's power rankings. And I know Mitchell's not here again. Mitchell wants me to put the Detroit Lions. He wants me to put the Detroit Lions at number 1. Not doing it. Number 1, Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2, coming off a bye week, still undefeated, Minnesota Vikings. I'm not taking undefeated teams off of 1 and 2 until they lose. Number 3 is a debatable position. The Detroit Lions have a very strong argument for the number 3 spot. They have a tough argument. They have a good argument. Really good game, 47-9 in Dallas. Houston Texans looked really good, but they almost lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 1-5. All right, I can do it. Detroit goes 3. Houston Texans will move to 5 because the Baltimore Ravens are starting to look like they once did, look very dominant. The combination, the duo of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, it's probably everything they dreamed it would be. They're taking over the games, wearing defenses down. They don't know which way to go. If you go for Derrick Henry, Lamar is carving you. If you go for Lamar, Derrick Henry is putting a helmet in your chest. And then Lamar is doing it through the air as well, threw for over 300 yards last game. So I got the Baltimore Ravens moving up. Even though they have 2 losses, they've been rolling lately. They look like the championship team that we expected coming into this season. And so that's why I have at 4. The Houston Texans with C.J. Stroud are still sitting there at 5, even though I want to put the San Francisco 49ers in there. They're 3-3 at 500. I need them to win these next couple, get over 500, and start looking like the contender that we know they are, and they'll move back in. But this has been the Richard Sherman Podcast, Monday night recap. I appreciate you joining us. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and I dang sure appreciate it. Have a blessed night.